I think there are lots of ways to approach real estate, and there are lots of philosophies about what real estate should be. I guess there's an analogy to life. There are lots of ways to approach life. On a short-term basis, it's probably pretty much fun to go out and ski and recreate in areas and have some immediate enjoyment and immediate gratification and the psychological rewards that come along with it. A short-term orientation to real estate, is the view that a lot of people have, and the value of their efforts is measured by how much money they make and how short of a period of time they hold a building, how little of their own equity they invest. I think that's a very short-term judgment, and I think what it does is it really compromises the real standards for that ought to be applied to making building decisions. In any city in the U.S., you can drive down the highway and you can see examples of buildings that were built for the lowest possible cost, maybe in some really good locations, and if you can lease them for the highest possible rates, your immediate short-term return is pretty nice. But do they really improve the quality of the built environment? Do they really kind of make a lasting contribution? Churchill said, that we shape our buildings and they shape us.
Right.
Frankly, I'm not one that wants to be shaped by Burger Kings and McDonald's and one-story stucco buildings on a freeway. I'm more interested in making a lasting contribution that I think will hopefully stand for multiple generations, hundreds of years, working in areas where property isn't really where there's limited supply of property, and so I think it forces you to kind of take a longer view. On the Capitol Square in Madison, it's a really good example. We have very limited land area. We're sandwiched on a narrow isthmus between two lakes. We're surrounded by residential neighborhoods that are relatively sacrosanct because people want to maintain, and neighborhood associations want to maintain those areas. Mm-hmm. So what's a good kind of long-term view of what you should do to improve the built environment and the quality of life in downtown Madison? It's cheaper to build above-grade parking. But with a height limit, if you build above-grade parking, you can't build enough density to really kind of bring life, activity, energy, jobs, to downtown. And so while it might be very difficult to put parking underground so that you can maximize the built environment, you can actually have shops, restaurants at the sidewalk level that will add to the quality of life. While it's very hard to do that, I think in the end, you build a project that actually does contribute something significantly to the built environment. And only if you're committed to keep it for the long term can you make the investment decisions that you should. Otherwise, you're most focused on cutting costs, building something as cheap as you can to maximize your profit. And you don't really care what happens to the second or third or fifth or 25th owner, 75 years from now. But if you view real estate as something that you or your successors are going to be responsible for the next 100 years, I submit that you take a different view of what you build. For me, it's all about building. It's all about creating. It's all about creating something special, something better than the generic, standard, and something that would maintain lasting value. And I think it's a really it's a different approach, but it's frankly an approach that we're more comfortable with than treating real estate as disposable.
We were touring your tobacco lofts and a couple other properties, and one of your employees was telling me about the great lengths that you guys went to, I believe, run some pipes underground so that there wouldn't have to be pipes on the outside, and to maintain a bit of the architectural and aesthetic integrity of the property. And then we looked at another place that was just really built to an incredibly high standard. And I said, what's the secret sauce here? Like, how are you making this work? Because I'm sure that there are other people on paper who would say, yes, you should build architecture of quality and the next generation. But at the end of the day, they just don't do it. And many times they would say, yeah, and if you go out, you lose your shirt trying. So how do you make the numbers work on these things?
We invest our own money. So we don't have partners. We don't need to go to a partner and who, is really demanding or driven by, a specific internal rate of return. when we started out and didn't have any money, we had partners because we had to. But we gradually decided that that we would rather make decisions for ourselves and commit our own resources, and so that we control what we do. In the last 25 years, I'm not sure we've probably had one project that had outside partners because they happen to own the land and we wanted to use it. But we invest our own money. We basically create that money by having buildings that are full and successful. The reason our buildings are full and successful is we build a better mousetrap. We build a better quality of environment than our competition does, under the theory that if we can keep our tenants happy for the long term and give them a fair price, whether they're renting apartments or renting office space or paying for parking, that they're going to be happier, and they're going to stay longer. The art of making money in real estate, particularly office space, is not having turnover. And so working in an area that has limited supply, controlling most of the places where you can create office space, having a very long-term strategic vision to maximizing your market share and your control of a submarket, but building great space that offers people amenities, a quality of environment, a parking accommodation, a location that they can't find elsewhere, really allows us to pay off our debt aggressively, so that we have enough equity built up in the projects that we keep to invest in the next project that we do. And so it's just a much different strategy than most people in the real estate industry follow.
So necessity dictated that you started with partners, but once you were on that trajectory, rather than keep going with the partner system and just bigger and bigger and bigger partners, you kind of cashed out, so to speak, and began then 100% equity. 100%.
Well, we didn't cash out.
Not cash
many
out,
of the projects that we had with partners, we still have, and we've bought out those partners' interests for the most part over time, because we again believe in the long-term value of the real estate that we created, and if our real estate is better, most people won't duplicate that quality, and so we'd rather keep and operate really good buildings.
How heavily did the initial deals where you had partners affect that course, or was that the plan all along?
Well, I think when you're starting out and you need to have a partner invest equity because you don't have any equity, and we started with nothing.
Yep.
The stepping stone to success is doing a project that exceeds an investor's expectations, not necessarily selling it, but just on a cash flow basis exceeds their expectations. It wasn't so much that there was a direct a financial windfall that was created, that we harvested in our early projects. We used the success of those projects to demonstrate the credibility that we needed to have to convince lenders and communities that we could really do what we said we were going to do, so that we could make a difference, which gave us the ability to step into the next project.
What kind of experience did ULI have during the Great Recession, quote unquote, in 2008, 2009? You're developing some things, but then you also have a pretty major portfolio. How is the experience of a developer or development company that has a big portfolio of long-term hold similar to and also different from the experience of a developer who's doing a lot of transaction-based work?
Well, I guess I'm not. I don't know that. I don't know the experience from the other side, being the transaction-focused hedge fund. But because we had built up so much equity by having really good real estate around the Capitol Square, and we paid off our debts very aggressively. We, obviously had to take some really big risks to do those projects. But at a time in 2009, when the economy was absolutely tanking, we bought U.S. Bank Plaza and the Tenney Building, another block on the Capitol Square, with a total of about 420,000 square feet. That building was in great need of renovation and rehabilitation, and so that was our biggest acquisition. We had the firepower, we had the cash, we had the capital resources, and we had the credibility and experience to demonstrate to lenders that we would do what we say, we were going to do. And so in 2008, when other people were running for the hills, for us, it was a great buying opportunity.
Exactly.
We bought a building that was a significant addition to our strategic portfolio. We took a building that was an energy hog and basically made it a LEED gold certified building. And now U.S. Bank Plaza is full. We're actually moving tenants out as we need to accommodate some expansion of existing tenants. So we weren't affected really by the recession, other than it presented good buying opportunities that we could take advantage of. We don't really get very enamored with what's going on in the rest of the country or what's going on, nationally. It's like all politics are local.
Mm-hmm.
For us, our focus is on local real estate. And, we understand, we think what we're looking at, and we understand the trends, and we understand when an opportunity to buy something that makes sense comes along. And so we take advantage of it. But again, I think a lot of the hedge funds, a lot of the big money investors, are very focused on macroeconomic trends. You can live and die based on foreign exchange rates and perceptions of the availability of oil and the price of oil. You have all kinds of factors that create, great ups and downs. For us, we've built, we started our company in 1974 in a recession. In 1981, we built a condominium project, Doty School Condominiums in Madison, at a time when prime was 18% and everybody else was, taking back condominiums. We sold 17 units successfully. Only made about $125,000 for a lot of risk and a lot of effort. By the way, after that project, we decided it wasn't worth selling things that you couldn't replicate, and Doty School was a unique project, still is today. And so today we would have done that as a rental project, not as a condo. Mm-hmm. But 82 was a recession, when a lot of people went broke. 1986, the Tax Reform Act came along and, removed the syndication benefits. 91, 92, was a recessionary year. 2001 was a recessionary year. 2009 was a recessionary year. We built and developed successfully through all of those because I think we stayed very focused on what it is we do, and we knew when there were opportunities that we could take advantage of.
I saw you had architectural magazines in your lobby, which is not something I imagine I would see in lots of developers' offices. So talk to me a little bit about your relationship to architecture, to architects, and things to watch out for there.
Well, we've always believed that great architecture or exceptional architecture creates value in how people perceive a project. And we were lucky enough to, I think, be exposed to some pretty good architects back in in the days when I was working for Inland Steel before we started developing on our own account. We had an appreciation, I had an appreciation for the value of design. If you look at something that makes a lot of sense, whether it's a chair that you sit in, or the elegance of a piece of furniture, or the design of a car, I think you may not know why you like it. You may not be able to articulate it, but you can look at something that really is elegant and really is functional, and you can say, "Wow, that's pretty nice." Well, I think you can do the same thing about buildings. Buildings are far more complicated. The challenge with buildings is you do them on a one-off basis. You're not building clay models of a building, and then once you get it right, you go build 300,000 units. Our projects are almost all one-off. But I think I grew up understanding design, the importance of design, and with a real commitment to use architecture to create buildings of lasting value. And so we've been blessed to work with a whole bunch of architects, some of them local, some of them we outgrew because they didn't have the capacity to kind of do what we wanted. When we assembled the land, most of the land in Block 89, and we're looking around for architects, we basically interviewed some of the best architects in the country. We used architecture to create something that people will walk into and say, "Wow, this isn't just a vanilla office building. This isn't just a vanilla development. This isn't just a vanilla view. The view of the Capitol Square and Lake Monona are pretty exceptional. And I think that by using architecture, by controlling the architect, for most architects, their building is a painting, and they have a whole bunch of ego and investment, and they want to do it their way. Well, guess what? It's not their building. It's my building. And so there's a real creative tension between, trying to get great architecture, in a building that works, in a building that functions, in a building that you can maintain, in a building that you can actually live in long term. And I think the most successful architecture, or the most successful development, and the most successful long-term management, results when you can control an architect's instincts and urges, and you get collaboration, truly effective collaboration that really produces something magical and special. It's not just taking what the architect tells you. It's not just taking what the city planner tells you. It's not just taking what the contractor tells you and just sort of listening to all these experts and saying, okay, I guess I got it. You've all told me to do different things, and I can go do it. It's really having a vision. It's really controlling. It's really understanding. I think a successful developer is a lot like a conductor of an orchestra.
Absolutely.
You can take the talents of a whole bunch of different people, but you have to coordinate them, and you have to get them. They have to subordinate their own individual agendas to a greater purpose, and that greater purpose you've got to stay focused on, which is creating a terrific long-term building that you're going to own for the next 100 or 200 years.